So, hello guys, I am Nakar and I am here with Angela. She currently lives in Vietnam and she has an
Hi,
interesting
Angie.
story to share with us. Hey Angela, how you doing?
Hi, it's Angie actually, not Angela.
Sorry, Angie. Hey Angie, how you doing?
I'm very good. Extremely fucking bored, but pretty good. Sorry, am I allowed to curse?
We are all bored, Angie. We are all bored.
I'm sorry, am I allowed to curse or do I need to keep it
Oh
clean?
yes, definitely. You can curse.
Okay. Not cursing requires a lot of content.
Yeah. So, Angela, tell me a little bit about your story. Angie, tell me a little bit about your story.
What do you mean? You mean like how I got to Vietnam, or do you mean like coronavirus shit going on right now?
How you got to Vietnam and to begin with, because that is interesting.
Okay, so I am from the US. I was living in Hawaii, and I was living there for about 15 years or so. So Hawaii is home for me. It's where I spent most of my life. And I was there, I was married, I had 2 kids. I have 2 kids, they're still around. And then my ex-husband and I, we got divorced. So I was suddenly a single parent and kind of didn't really know what to do or where to go. Like basically my whole world was turned upside down. And I started to look out for ways I could sort of get out of my situation or make my situation better. I was a teacher for the Department of Education. I have a degree in elementary education. And I was also working 2 part-time jobs just to try to make ends meet, and somehow was still falling below the poverty line. So 6 hours a week, not really being able to make it, not getting to see my kids, no real help from my ex-husband at the time. So it was difficult. And of course, everyone around me was just kind of like, this is adulthood. You just have to deal with it. But something in my spirit was like, this can't be it. Like, this cannot be all. If this is what I have to deal with for the rest of my life, I'm finished. I'm done. I don't want to do this shit no more. And obviously with my 2 kids, like that was not an option. So I started to look for ways in which I could make my situation better. And I started to research a lot online. And I found out that people were teaching abroad and making quite a bit of money, enough to live and have savings and still be able to travel. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I can do that. I'm a teacher. If I'm going to be struggling here, I may as well at least try and make it that is a little lower cost of living, and you know, give my kids some different opportunities. So I applied for a job with the UAE, and I didn't get the job, but I already had in my mind I wanted to leave. So I just saved up some money. Actually, it wasn't really that much. It was like $3 grand. I had a couple of credit cards, and I found out that people also were kind of just traveling around and doing what's called world schooling or unschooling, and in places with much lower cost of living than the US, and they were able to get by on that. So that's what I did. I made a choice between South America and Southeast Asia because the cost of living was much lower, and the tickets to Southeast Asia happened to be $50 cheaper.
Yeah,
when I was ready.
$50 cheaper. So, yeah,
$50 cheaper. So I ended up in Southeast Asia with my 2 kids. And we just traveled for a long while. We traveled for about 8 months. We went to Bali, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Cambodia, and then we came to Vietnam. And coming to Vietnam was just like on a whim. I met a girl in Cambodia, and she came to Vietnam before we did, and she was like, oh, you know, the cost of living here is really low. It's really easy to get a job. You guys will be fine. Just come to Vietnam. So we did. I was kind of at that point, at that like 8-month point of traveling about, I was kind of running out of money. And so I needed to find something to do.
You actually got on a plane with $3,000, and you just went with your kids and just took the risk and like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. One of the things that, well, two things is I tend to live my life a lot by faith. I understand that things can be different and miraculously different with just one decision. And a lot of times people, I feel, get stuck in their situation and they're miserable. And they feel like they really can't do anything about it. So they're comfortable with it. They're used to it. So they just kind of keep going with it, even though it's not really working for them. And I basically just made a decision. I researched it and I knew that people were out there successfully doing it. I knew that at the very least, we could have a different experience for a while, even if we had to come back to the States. But I already knew that the situation in the United States was not great, contrary to popular belief to people who are outside of the United States. Up until right now, like I feel like the whole world right now is seeing that the US is a fucking sham. And I'm kind of happy about it, to be honest. Like right now, the whole world is really seeing how much of a shit show the United States is. So I just really decided to make a decision. I just tried to see if there was a different way of doing things. And it so happens that there is.
And where about, because you went from Cambodia up to Vietnam, and where did you land in Vietnam?
I landed in Vung Tau. Vung Tau is like a little tiny beach town on the like Pacific coast. It's only about hour and a half, 2 hours from Ho Chi Minh. And we landed there. It was, to me, it felt very much like Maui, where I'm from, except that the beaches were trashy.
That sounds
I'm from Maui, yeah.
Mm.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's just ridiculously expensive to be there. It's absolutely gorgeous though. And right now, actually, with the Corona thing and being on lockdown in a city, I really do kind of miss the island life because at the very least, I could be like outside and enjoying nature, and here it's not really possible. But anyway,
that's an advantage from people living in the islands. They get so much more freedom when there is a shutdown. They have so much more freedom to maybe go out.
Well, I mean, it's a give and a take. It's a give and a take. Like they do have the beauty of nature, and there is like more wide open space where you could still be outside and be socially distant. However, right now I know that they've closed the beaches. You can't go to the beach anymore. All the parks are closed. I mean, they still have to stay inside just like everyone else. It's just some people are lucky enough to have property like in the jungle where you have, you know, an acre of land to roam about and, you know, you're at home. So yeah, that would be really nice.
Yeah, that's few people though. Yeah, I guess. And so you arrive in Vietnam, and at this point you were kind of running out of money, and you are with your kids. So what did you do? How did you
I took a job. I took a job teaching English. Teaching English is the most readily available job for expats here. you basically sign on with an English language center, or some people are hired out by the public school system. Especially public school system is mostly, a lot of the teachers who work there are non-native speakers. But the most like steady and I guess kind of secure job is English language teaching with an English language center. And so that's what I did. I signed on with one of the biggest ones in the country, because I have a degree in education. It was pretty seamless for me. Like I didn't know at the time that my skill set was in high demand. And I actually probably could have gotten with a better center or negotiated a better contract or something like that. But I just took the job because I needed work. And it was fine for a while. English language teaching is not teaching at all. It's glorified babysitting for the English language centers. So it's very easy work. You don't have to work, like, I think max I was working like 20 hours a week. But most of the time I was working like 16 hours a week and making a really good salary, enough to, it was enough to pay my rent and to pay for food and stuff. It wasn't enough because I had the 2 kids. It wasn't enough for me to save anything. But if I had been a single person, it definitely would have been enough to save money as well.
And how
And to
was
travel a lot more.
that experience of being a mom? Because you are a mom and you have these 2 kids. So how was that all experience for them, for you, all of this traveling across Asia, from Bali up to Vietnam, and then how was their experience and your experience as a mother? Maybe some of the difficulties you encounter or some of the advantages you encounter if you compare it to the United States, the old mother experience. How was that?
Well, traveling around, when we were traveling for the first 8 months, it was mostly good. We stayed in a lot of Airbnbs. We also did what's called workaway, which is basically you trade some sort of skill or job for room and board. So that allowed us to live basically for free for about 2.5 months of our journey. The rest of the time, we did a mix of really like budget travel, and then we mixed times because she's more of an introvert. And so she had a hard time making friends. So we got closer as a result of that. And they really loved it. The downside of it was that I didn't have a support system anymore. So I was with my kids for that first 8 months. I was with them 24/7, 7 days a week for the whole entire time. Okay. And I'm sure a lot of parents right now can relate to how hard that really is. Not having anyone else to be like, can you just take them for a little while so I can get a breather? I found myself like hiding in the bathroom, or like
on the one hand,
like, I'm going out to the balcony.
On the one hand, it was fun for them because this was like a great new experience, and you're just out there with your kids, and it's fun for you, and you're visiting all these different places and meeting so many new people and interacting. So there's this adventure going on, and you're like, wow, it's great the first 8 months, and you're traveling to all these different places. But then you kind of get to Vietnam, and you really start to say, okay, I just really have to work now, and you kind of start, being a professional as well, because you're a professional as well as a mother. And now you have all of this responsibility with your kids. And on the one hand, it got you closer, but on the other hand, you start to feel like the pressure of just being there alone in a foreign country. And you're like, oh my God, what if something happens? And who will take care of them? And also you may, you're an adult, so you kind of need like your space. And all of that, it's over months and months and months, it just it becomes a lot. I believe from
Yeah, it definitely became a lot. The good thing about being in Vietnam, though, was because the cost of living is so low and because there's a different sort of culture here, my kids had a nanny and she would come like 4 days a week. She cooked, she cleaned, she took care of the kids, she took them off my hands for a little while. So when we got to Vietnam, it was a little bit of a different situation because I did have help then, and she was amazing, like absolutely amazing.
And
Um,
was she
so
from
that was really
Vietnam?
helpful, and I think her salary for like 4 days a week was like $150. Like it's ridiculous. But like
Okay.
in Vietnam, like I have not washed my clothes in like years. I don't like this quarantine situation now. I miss my cleaning lady. Like I had to mop my own floor the other day and I was just like, what the fuck? Like why is this even happening? So we live a very, very cushy life here and for like almost nil. Like I did my taxes the other day and I made like $8,000 and lived really, really well for the whole entire last year. 8,000 US dollars. And I live pretty good. So like
So
the cost of living here
from
is
from
ridiculously low.
from Hawaii, where you with $8,000, you basically get nowhere, to moving to Vietnam and having a profession that is actually valued, and your money is also valued, and so your lifestyle really, in a way, went skyrocketed. I mean, you live a life that's much more privileged. I mean, do you feel this way? Like
Um,
from
I feel, I mean, it was completely worth it. If I had to do it all over again, I definitely would do almost exactly the same thing. Um, my kids got to experience something that their peers will never ever get to experience. And kind of oddly enough, because of the way that I schooled them while we were abroad, they are completely prepared for the way that the situation is right now. That they know what it is to do online school. They know what it is to be at home. And like when we were at home the whole time, they were never allowed to say they were bored. Like your boredom is not my problem. You need to find something to entertain yourself. So my kids are really well prepared for what is happening right now. Because currently they moved back to the States about a year ago to be with their dad.
mm,
So what they're going through, how they're dealing with it right now is not, it's not that bad for them. Like they're pretty used to already having that sort of situation. Um, but like I said, I would do it again 100%
like
if I
definitely.
had the opportunity to do it all over again. Absolutely 100%. I would do it. I think it is the best decision I ever made for myself and for my kids, for sure.
So you started over there as a teacher, but then it kind of evolved, and what you end up doing, that because teaching was your starting line, but eventually you move, you transition into some other position as a professional. Mm.
Right. So um, I hated Vung Tau. I hated that little beach town that we lived in. It felt too much like home. And the
Okay.
beaches were filthy. Like they are trash. They
Mm.
give zero fucks about cleaning up there. There is no ecology or like environmentalism at all. So being in a really tiny town where there wasn't much going on and not being able to enjoy the outdoors, I just was like, fuck this, I gotta get out of here. So a transfer came through with the English language center that I was working for to move to the city, to Ho Chi Minh City. And when I told my friends around there about it, they were like, oh God, you're gonna hate it. It's so busy, it's so crazy. And I got to Saigon and I was just like, oh my God, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. Um, and so I lived for it. And it was a little bit more expensive. So that was a consideration to have. But I was in Saigon for maybe a month and I went to a comedy show. And I was bantering with the host and nobody, it was like a small crowd and nobody was really like you know, he was trying to do crowd work and stuff and nobody was being responsive.
But what
So
was
I
this?
was like sort of
Was this crowd like mostly Vietnamese or people, foreign people, or how you know how
mostly
did?
expats.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mostly expats. At the time, the comedy audiences were mostly expats. There were a few Vietnamese, English-speaking Vietnamese sprinkled in here and there, but it was mostly expats. And so I was bantering with the host. When the show was over, the showrunner came up to me and he was like, "Oh, do you want to do stand-up comedy?" And I was
Oh,
like,
cool.
I don't know, like, I guess I could. I never thought about it, but, you know, maybe. So I went home to Maui. I came back, and then I did my first show. And I killed. Like, I did so, so well. And I talked about, actually, that story is on my YouTube channel or something somewhere. I don't keep it with my YouTube. I'm horrible with social media, but anyway. I think I talked about like having to travel with, you know, the airline or whatever. I did really, really well. And then they asked me the next night to come back. And then that show, there was an international headliner. I got paid for it. And I was just like, I didn't even know we could be making money at this. So after that, I kind of just got bit by the bug and I was doing comedy as much as I possibly could. But it wasn't something that I ever thought about doing before I came to Saigon. And so the guy who was running the scene at the time, Adam Palmer, he became kind of a mentor to me. He really encouraged me and like supported me, and he gave me a lot of stage time and stuff. And then when he basically gifted me the scene. He gifted me all of his contacts. Every venue that he was working with, he gave me a lot of advice and stuff, and it really encouraged me to keep going with it. And when he left, it started out as a collective of 5 people who took over the scene, and we started Saigon Funny People. But then slowly they all started to drop out, and ironically enough, Adam told me that that was going to happen when he left. He was like, real cute that y'all want to work together. That's really cute, but you know you're going to be the only one. And he saw something in me that I wasn't aware of myself yet. So yeah, we started with 5 people. They started to slowly drop out, and I basically, eventually it was just me with the situation. And like the other 4 of the other people, 3 of the other people, they still do comedy. 2 of them still do comedy. They still perform regularly. They're still my very good friends, but they don't help with the logistics of everything. So I went from just doing like open mics and stand-up comedy here and there to basically running the scene in Saigon. We had, up until recently, we had the longest running open mic in Saigon. I ran it for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have 2 other shows a month, themed shows. When I first took over, we tried to do way too much, and we had like 5 shows a week, and we quickly found out that there wasn't enough talent in the city to support that. But
So you kind of got hooked to this comedy thing, because that was like out of the blue. You're like, wow, really, me? And now all of a sudden you're doing
yeah.
all of these shows, and you're like, wow, let's do some more and
Yeah,
more
no,
and more.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I miss the stage so much right now. I miss just being out and doing jokes and things like that. But not only that, comedy has helped me to get other jobs. I now work for a Vietnamese television media outlet. So I do videos and things for them as well, for MCV. It's helped me to get a ton of other work, like hosting and like emceeing at different events and things like that. And now I travel for comedy. So I did a comedy festival in Canada last year. I was supposed to do a comedy festival in Canada and Australia this year, but that's obviously not going to happen now. But I travel. I did the Asian tour. I've done the Southeast Asian tour twice. And I don't teach English anymore. I'm not taught since September of 2018. So comedy and event planning and talent management are my, I work full time in entertainment right now, or I did. But with COVID, my business has almost completely stopped. And trying to figure out how to shift things from here in a business that is so dependent on an audience, and it's so dependent on other people coming out and showing up for your stuff. I haven't quite figured out how to make that shift yet. And I've seen some comedians like doing online stuff, but it's really odd to be like telling jokes to no one.
Yeah, that's
It
kind
really
of,
is dependent
it's kind of
on the
odd.
audience.
I mean, the things that are cool that you can do online is if you have a team of people and you develop a sketch or something like that. So you may have some costumes
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So now you develop something that's cool and that's funny, and then you post it. But just being there in front of a microphone and telling jokes, and there's nobody looking at you, and it's kind of like, wow, what am I doing? That's the point.
Yeah. I tried to watch one of the specials that came out. One of the big comedy outlets
Mm.
put out like a 24-hour special, and it was really bad. Like, it was just a bunch of comedians talking just like we're talking right now on Zoom, and it was just like, this is absolutely awful. Like, it was not funny at all. And we're actually supposed to participate in one of those sort of things coming on April 18th. And so myself and the other two comedians that are going to do it with me, we're trying to figure out how to make it come across funny. Because just sitting in front of the screen and telling jokes, like, it's just, I mean, we're faced with a lot of problems. It's not funny. Two, almost any material that we write during this time is not evergreen. So after the virus is over and we get back to whatever life, I don't think it
So,
will ever resemble what we had before.
so,
But once we get back to some semblance of normal life,
mm,
those jokes don't really apply anymore. So I've just been really trying to lean into the fact that we just are forced to take a pause and to take a rest. And I've just been doing a lot of self-care. I've been doing a lot of like meditation and chanting and doing some yoga here and there. I've been, making sure that we're eating really good food in the house. Um,
mm.
just and like vegging out to like doing nothing on purpose, which is not something that I got to do. Before this whole thing hit, I was super busy all the time. I was going out like 6-7 days a week. I
So you
had
do
tons of
yoga and you
meetings. I was
meditate.
always creating something new.
You are into yoga, into meditation, and so that is also part of you, part of who you are. And I am curious, when did you start this yoga journey and meditating, and when did all of that happen for you?
The yoga thing is just something that I do here and there. I first got into yoga when I was going through my divorce. It really helped me. But it's not something, I wouldn't say that I am a regular practitioner of yoga, not at all. It's come out of just pure boredom. Like, I have nothing better to do, so I may
Okay.
as well like stretch or do something. Um, on the other hand, the meditation and chanting, that is part of my regular practice. I'm a Nichiren Buddhist, so I try to chant daily, and we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I don't know if you've seen the
Oh yes,
Tina Turner movie.
I have a little book. I don't know what it's called, and it explains you about the chants. And I actually went through a
Yeah.
period where I was also I started with when my first introduction to meditation was through this Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. And
Oh, really cool. Really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. And this story, it's funny because I actually started alone in the home, and I found out this book, and it was left to me by my parents. So it was there 10 years. So I was kind of going like through boxes and stuff, and I pulled out this book, And so I started reading and went through the whole story, and like a little tiny book, like one of those really small ones. So then I
Yeah, it's really
started,
tiny. I have one. I have one here. Hold on a second.
yeah.
This one. I have this one.
Yep, yep, I think
Yep.
so. Let me see if I can just, if I can find the one. Oh no, I have no idea what it is. But yeah, it's that one. It's that one. I have, it's that one, but I have one with a blue cover. I think it's
Uh-huh.
from the same author. So anyway, I
Yeah,
started
so
with,
the
hmm,
organization is Soka Gakkai International, or SGI, and they put out all the materials for Nichiren Buddhism. I mostly just do the chanting. I've tried to read some of the material, like some of the teachings of Buddha and everything, but I grew up really Christian,
hmm,
and like reading like the King James version of the Bible, and a lot of the materials that are there for Buddhism are also very wordy and like really flat, and I have no idea what the fuck's going on. So
yeah, yeah,
I do the practice, but I don't read much about like the philosophy of it. But what I like about the practice is though is that um, it encourages you to take responsibility for your own life. It's not about some guy in the sky who's making all of your choices. It's not about some guy in hell telling you all the bad things to do or putting stumbling blocks in your way or whatever. It's just about cause and effect, so that when you make choices and then you get either good or bad back from those choices, it's because of your own choices. It's because of your own life, of your
yeah.
own life
I
force.
think, I believe that
So it encourages you to try to put out as much good as possible in order to get that back.
yeah, to put as much good as possible, and this of taking responsibility, and just this really it's focused on you and your action. From what I understand, it's kind of like a very Buddhist thing. Like there's not someone out there in the skies that's gonna make things happen for you. You just kind of have to, this is a journey, and you have kind of to put in work and on yourself, and go through this transformation by actually doing it. So that is, yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so in times like this, with what we're going through with Corona, it's been very helpful because I understand the law of cause and effect. And
Mm.
I know that everything goes through a cycle. We're not going to be here forever. The world is definitely going to be different after this is done. But the practice allows me to just sort of maintain perspective and understand that everything does happen for a reason. And not just like, not saying that like in a cliche way, saying it like the 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 things that we have done as humans on this planet are the cause of what is happening right now. And
Mm.
so now we have an opportunity to take some time back, to reflect, to rest, to let the earth rest. And we need to go forward with different causes so we can have different effects.
So I really like this idea of just having time to just kind of lay back, because this is not very common for most people. We are just hooked into our life, and a lot of people that just working all the time. So me personally, I find that because I have a flexible, flexible life, and so I can put things here and there. I get to, I have a lot of time. But most people, they never have time to just be at home and just be there with themselves. They're just stuck in
Right.
this mechanism, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And I wonder how normal is, because I'm looking at what normal was, and now you just get a moment to just detach from it and just look at it, and you can say like, whoa, is that the normal we really want to go back to?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I hope that a lot of people are reflecting in that way, that
Mm.
do we want to go back to the way that things were? I don't, I also personally had a lot of free time. My job is basically online or in person. I mean, like it's online or it's on stage. So in between those two things, I have a ton of time. I had a ton of time usually. And I would still be very busy. I still had a lot of like meetings and little tasks and like social media promotions and stuff like that that I needed to do. But for the most part, I would say I had a ton more free time than most people had. Um, but even me having to like, I mean, like I said, all of my business has basically stopped right now.
But that
And I
the
could spend
corona
my
was,
time worrying about how I'm gonna make things work out or which way to move forward. But the thing about this whole situation is we have no idea when it's gonna be over. We have no idea what the world is gonna look like afterwards. So if you spend a lot of your time, in my opinion, wasted on worrying about what's going to happen next, you're wasting this opportunity. Like you've said, most people never have this amount of downtime, and we probably will never get it again in our lifetimes. So I think that it's really important for a lot of people to just lean into the rest period. You don't really have anything going on. You can worry about it if you want to, but you're just wasting your time. Just veg out, man. Like just sleep, just spend time with your loved ones, just, do nothing and be okay with that.
yeah, like, yeah, that is exactly what I am saying. Just, the mentality with which you approach this, and and for some people, I've heard stories, just an opportunity of being there with their kids. It's like some parents are just out all the time, and then now they're like, oh, okay, I'm here. So it's just this, I think there's countless opportunities in this moment. But however, going back to you, this was kind of, in a way, it was kind of a blow to your finances and to your business and to all the things you had going on. So it's, on the one hand, and on the other, you use, uh, yeah, on the
It is and it isn't. It has stopped my income right now. Um, but I am lucky enough to be doing this in Vietnam and not in the US. First of all, because Vietnam we've been dealing with this here since January. Because China borders Vietnam in the north. I think the first cases of corona started in Wuhan on December 19th, I believe. And so by the time January rolled around, they had already closed the border with China. They had already stopped people flying in and out so much. It was right around the time of Chinese New Year, what we call Tet. So a lot of people were on holiday already. But Vietnam was very swift in how they dealt with the coronavirus. So to date, we still have less than 250 cases of it. No one has died, and a lot of people have recovered from it. If
so
they closed the borders
let's
much
give
quicker than a lot of other countries did,
let's give some credit to the Vietnamese government. I mean, they really handle it well compared to
they
like
handled it
other
very, very
countries.
well.
It's like,
They handled
wow.
it really well.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
and because I live in a country now that the cost of living is so low, even though I've been out of work for, steady work for a long while, it hasn't been that bad. And even if I needed, my rent is like $300 a month. So even if I needed to borrow money or if I needed to, figure out how to come up with some cash, I can do like little odds and ends jobs and figure out how to make that happen, because it's not like, I'm 2 grand in the hole every single month. I'm not. So so that's a good thing about it. And I'm really appalled at how the US, I'm not appalled. I'm actually not that surprised, but it really sucks how the US has dealt with the whole situation. They haven't taken it seriously at all. And now so many of my friends and family are in, horrible situations because of the way that the government has dealt with it. And not just that, but also because of the way that the American system is. And it has been flawed, and it has been a problem for so long. And now everything is just sort of imploding, and the world is looking at them like, what are you gonna do now? So I do wish at this time somewhat that my kids were still here. Because like the only thing that I worry about right now is I have no idea when I'll be able to go and see my kids again. I have no idea. I was supposed to go, they were supposed to meet me on my tour in Canada in August. And now that's, the tour is not happening. Borders are closed, so
Borders are
I
closed,
can't leave. They can't leave.
It's kind of
the
a who
money
knows.
situation has been.
It's kind of who knows.
It's definitely who knows. I have no idea when I'll be able to see my kids again. I have no idea, and that is the hardest thing that I have to deal with right now.
And one more thing that I just want to talk about as we get toward the end of the interview. How are people there? Like for people coming there, like how are the Vietnamese people, and how it's life there, and all of this. This is I'm curious.
Well, I absolutely love Vietnam. I think I will always have a home here. I'm hoping that my comedy career really takes off, and it's been going really well for the last 2 years. So I have a lot of hope in that arena, but I think I will always keep a home here. Vietnamese people are extremely helpful, very kind, very welcoming. I have no doubt that if anything happened, my neighbors would totally be there for me. And they speak very limited English. I speak very limited Vietnamese, but they're all very helpful and very welcoming. Racism here is almost non-existent. And even the sort of things that you could interpret as racism are not at all what I would be dealing with in the United States or in other Western countries. I live a very, very good life here. The government, expats here kind of live on the outside of the rules. So my experience is definitely different than Vietnamese nationals. But it's just easy to live here. It's really easy to live here. It's very easy to get by. And the people are just generally nice and welcoming and happy.
So, as a black woman, a woman of color, you feel like there is less prejudice compared to America, and because I've heard many times that like people of color, they say they kind of feel safe for some reason in Asia, if compared to specifically to the United States. We know there is always been a kind of situation where some sort of anxieties or you may have.
I feel 1,000% safe here. Like I don't fear police brutality at all. Like the police, we can't talk. The only thing that we cannot do is talk badly about the government. So there's that. But that's like the only rule. You can't, bash the government here. And you really shouldn't as somebody who's not a citizen and in a country that they're, mostly good for. But I feel completely safe. No one has guns here. Like the most crime that you see is petty theft. Like sometimes the Grab drivers, if you're standing on the street with your cell phone, like I've heard people riding by and stealing your cell phone. Like that is, people might break into your house and try to steal your stuff, but like that is the height of crime here. Like it's so safe here. Yeah, like and racism, it's weird to be in a country that is so homogenous. Vietnamese people are all the same. They're like the same body type. They're all about the same height. They have, you know, the same skin tone, their hair is all the same, they all have the same eye color. And so when people come in who look so completely different than them, they're very curious and they're very like, you know, they kind of look at you like, well, what is that? They have no sort of frame of reference of who we are. They know Obama and they know Oprah and like, that's it. So, and they know white people and they have a very interesting relationship with whiteness. They know them as colonizers and as oppressors. However, they still, true to places who are out of colonialism, they still hold this affinity for white skin. So that's an interesting dynamic in itself. But as a Black person, mostly, I like to say that I live on outside of the bounds of most people's reality. They look at me and they have no frame of reference. They don't know what to do with me. And most of the time, I think it has to do a lot with my personality and how I perceive it. Most of the time, people are like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful. Your skin, your hair." Like, I'm just like magical to them. They don't like, they even, you know, a thing that Asian people do a lot is they call things out for what it is. So they'll look at my body type and be like, "Oh, you're fat," but they, in a way that they would say it to each other, it's kind of like, "You're fat, you need to lose weight." And the way that they say it to me is just like, it's very matter of fact. Like, it is, you know, "You're bigger than we are." But I
So
think that they understand.
that's just, you know, that's just a fact. It's there is no
Right.
there is just curiosity, and they're kind of curious because they have never seen a person that looks
Yeah,
like you.
they're just
And
curious. But I mostly get lots of compliments. Like, I was out at the market getting some groceries a few days ago, and a woman complimenting me on my breasts. And she just like,
oh,
she mimed to me, and she was like, "Really good." And I was like, "Oh,
oh,
okay,
okay.
cool." Like, but they don't have them. So like, so when I'm walking around, they're just like, "Oh, like, what is this magical creature and where the fuck did you come from?" Like, how they don't have like US TV or anything like that. I guess if they watch stuff on social media or YouTube, they might have some kind of point of reference, but it's almost like seeing a unicorn in person. They're just like, "I want to touch it. I want to know what that's about." Like, you know, it's more of a really childlike curiosity than anything else. And there is a debate. Like, they oftentimes they want to touch my hair, and I mean, you can see my hair right now. It's kind of short for me, but I always have like wild colors. I have really long, like down to past my behind braids, or I'll have, you know, like huge. I'm a drag queen sometimes. Sometimes I do drag. So like, I'll have all these costumes and like, I'm like, if people want to touch that, like, I understand. Like, it is an oddity. Like, it is, you know, something extraordinary. So I don't mind it, but some people here, some Black people here do get really like, you know, "Don't touch my hair, don't look at my skin." Like, I think it's misplaced. And you know,
I got,
people will drag me for that, but I think it's misplaced.
yeah, because it's just curiosity, and you know, maybe people, Black people coming from probably from US or from these other countries, they have a perception that that it's true maybe for United States. I mean, if somebody would touch your hair probably in US, you probably get offended. You'll be like, you know, what's going on?
Absolutely, because you should know better.
Yeah, but if you're like in Asia, because it's so different and people are just curious, there is not that kind of that aggression factor to it, or that prejudice, or that kind of negative paradigm that you can associate
Not at all.
with it. So yeah.
And I mean, most of the time people do ask before they'll touch you. Sometimes even, you know, the language barrier, whatever, they don't. I have been places where people have just had their hands in my hair, and I'm just like, "Whoa, like, let's not do that." But for the most part, they're very respectful about it, and it's childlike curiosity. Like, you can perceive it negatively if you want to, but that is also the feeling that you will get back. And I just choose to perceive it as a nice curiosity. And honestly, I feel complimented and I feel flattered. So
Angie, before we go to the end of this interview, do you want to give like one last piece of advice for someone who would like to relocate in Vietnam, if it will, of course, if it will be possible after the coronavirus? But, you know, that one piece of advice that you would give to anyone.
My biggest piece of advice right now is, after the coronavirus, if you have the means, and the means are not that much, get the fuck out of the United States. Like, use your blue passport for what it is. It's golden. Like, we get visa-free entry to so many places. It is one of, right now, and I'm hoping after coronavirus fallout and all of that it doesn't change its status. But right now, the blue passport is like way up there. If you have the means to get out of the US, get the fuck out. There are many more places that you can live a much better quality of life than in the States. And it's just not, the American dream has been dead for a long time. And it's time that most people understand and realize that. My other piece of advice would be to enjoy your life. That you got one life to live. And if nothing else, this whole situation should show people that we shouldn't waste so much time working for somebody else, or doing something that you don't love to do, or not spending time with your family and your loved ones and your friends, choosing to work just to survive rather than living your life and working just enough to get by, or not get by, but live well. So there are other options. Just research them, and you got tons of time right now, so figure out something else to do after this situation is over.
So Angela, you have where can people find you? Angie, where can people find you? You have a social media account, or Facebook, or
I have all the social media channels. I do not tweet, even though I do have a Twitter. I'm too old to tweet. I don't understand how it works. But I am on Instagram and Facebook mostly. My content for Instagram and Facebook are a little bit different, so you can check out both of those. But otherwise, I am Angie the Diva, absolutely everywhere. ANGEE the Diva. There's no I in the Angie. So, but if you look me up, absolutely everywhere, you will find me as ANGEE the Diva.
So, okay, guys, this was my interview with Angie, and I'm going to add all of the contact down below. And if you're curious or interested, you can contact her. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Bye, Angie.
Bye. Thank you. Stay safe, everybody, and keep your ass at home.